welcome to another episode of Management Unfiltered. I'm Kirk Teachout, and this is Shelley. We are going to be talking about something really fun today, where I'll be honest, Shelley is the best to talk about it because he has a lot to do with it. So, hey, Zach, what are we talking about today?
All right. So this is a fun subject this is why we do Unfiltered, because I don't think a lot of people actually talk about this. Ego versus confidence in leadership. What does that look like? Why is it there? What separates somebody having confidence versus having ego or being cocky? Might be the other expression that we use is cocky versus confidence. And how does that separate your leadership style? What are warning signs to look for? And this is really warning signs to look for yourself, office managers, and docs. Like there's a lot of doctors guilty of this egotistical mindset where, yes, I know you went to school and I respect that, but there are things that are not in your lane that you're not the best at, and you need to allow people to be good at that. So, one of the quick questions first is like, is an ego, Kirk, necessary to become a great leader?
No. Leader, no. Dictator, yes. I because let's define it, right? So what is the difference between ego and confident? So somebody who is egotistical is all about self, right? So if you're performing and the team is doing well and the practice is doing well, typically those people will say, I did this, not we did this, right? Yeah, let's make sure. um, Right. So the difference between ego and confidence, right? So the egotistical leader is going to say, hey, I did this. I led the team. I went to this, stage of life. I did all these things. Whereas the confident leader will say, hey, we did this together. We contributed together to work together to get to that point. And so the ego driven one will say, look, I mean, everything's about them, right?
Yep.
Everything is about destroying, not necessarily destroying others intentionally, but it's about faking it till you make it a lot of times. And I get it. I like when I was in the band, we wrote a song called Fake It Till You Make It. And it was one of my favorite songs to play. But now that I'm older, I'm like, man, it's not fake it till you make it. It's fail it till you nail it. And it's just like, okay, how do we I can't Elijah Desmond told me that, so I can't take credit for that. But still, fail it till you nail it, right? So go through life building teams, creating this community of people in your team, and allowing your confidence of knowing that you have put together a great team work to your advantage, not it's all on your shoulders. Let me do all of this so it comes back to me and credit for me, right?
A lot of people are maybe thinking this question. I'm gonna vocalize it, and we can talk through it. So it's not just you that has to answer, Kirk. But can we build something great without a strong ego? And I think this is where the biggest misconception people get into is having a powerhouse team with a leader that's, pushing this team. How do we do this without having the ego involved in it? And you've already answered that question a little bit, which is, going to drive a little bit more of this conversation, but it's not about me and I. And I think that's where you can have a strong leadership style and have your team grow and have something just absolutely great. And I feel like we were successful in our practice with that. I feel like you're successful in your practice with that because, you're able to have something great and you're not even there, but what, in person, how many days last year?
One.
Yeah, one day last year in practice. So
Yeah, so it's not I. It's not I.
yeah.
It is 100% my wife and that team.
And that's the big thing is like a lot of people think like you have to have that ego to be a great leader. But I was doing a webinar the other night and I talked about being an office manager is more of a servant position and really getting people in that mindset of like, yes, you are the leader, but if you have this mindset of servanthood, then your leadership style is going to fall into the team. It's going to fall into elevating others to be successful. And Kirk and I feel like always talk about having our team better at things than us, so that our team can thrive. Because the problem happens is when the whole team is reliant on the I or the person, When you're not there, everything falls apart. And that's not the whole key. So when you have great leadership, when you walk away, the practice doesn't crumble. And so I love this quote. I'm not going to take, I mean, I'm just going to say ChatGPT created an amazing quote for this. And it says, confidence builds teams, egos build monuments, usually to yourself. And I'm like, you know what? Computer nailed it on the head that time.
So, that being said, if you see somebody's name on the side of a building, is that ego or is it confidence?
Yeah.
Does it mean that everybody who has a name on the side of a building, does that mean that they're a bad person? No, not by any stretch. But I'll say that if that's where your heart is, I was like, oh, I want my name on the side of a building. I was like, yeah, but what's the purpose? I remember when I first started like on my entrepreneurial journey, I had my music studio. Okay, so I was recording artists, working with artists, and I had these business cards that I would carry around with me, and it had CEO, president, all these titles on it, and I was like, yeah, this is great. And now I don't have a title. I'm just like, I am Kirk, and I will do whatever I can to help bring value to whatever I can, right? Because honestly, titles are useless. Um, it doesn't matter. That's more of an ego driven thing versus confidence of like when you walk into a room, okay, do people listen to you or do they know that you're just doing this for yourself? It's more transactional than relational, right? So let's talk about that a little bit more, right? So to be able to spot the difference of somebody who is very transactional versus relational, what do you typically run into when you see, like, I mean, obviously, like you're in a business now versus, a um, you know, not only in a practice but also a business. Like, where do you draw the line? Like, what makes you more transactional versus more relational?
I feel like there's a balance to this, right? Like there's kind of an ebb and flow to where a leader has to find the median to this, because I don't feel like you can be solely transactional, because in that mindset you're very stark and just straight to the point, and that's all that is mattering. With just getting the next either transaction done or the next project done, like that's all you're focused on. Versus being solely relational, I feel like you're going to lose the mindset and practice of like what actually needs to happen on the business side, if that makes sense. So I feel like I fall really kind of right in the middle, because there's times to be strictly transactional. There's things you're saying, XYZ, this needs to happen. This is a project we're working on. You're here, you're here, you're here. Now then they come back and say, hey, I need support on this. That's when you say, okay, what are you struggling with? How can I come alongside you? And then the relational aspect comes into it. And I feel like I kind of try to balance kind of in between, because there's a way you can get lost in some of these short term things that really don't need to be relational. It's just straight to the point. Like, yes, this needs to happen. Boom, we're done. Versus knowing the times where you have to get in and build that relational aspect to your style. Does that make sense, Kirk?
Another thing to piggyback off of that is that there are different types of people in your life, right? There are people that are there for a reason, for a transaction meeting a need, right? There are people for a season, which could be team members, that could be relationships that you have. Like, I don't spend time talking or trying to reach out to anybody from college. Like that, they were there for a season, right? And then there are people who are there for a lifetime. Okay, so a reason, a season, and a lifetime. And sometimes we put people in the wrong category. But I will say, to keep our context and to keep our topic on point, if you are somebody who only reaches out to somebody when you need something, you're probably a transactional person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that person. Just think about that person in your life that only reaches out to you when they need something.
Yep.
That's probably a very transactional person. And I have those people. And to be honest, like, I know that's what they're there for, and that's okay for me.
Yeah.
What happens to, like, when you're a leader, though, all right, should not be that person. they may be a seasonal person. They're probably not there for a lifetime.
Yeah.
But still they need to be put in that category, so that way when, as a follower, you're not looking to them for those transactional things or being there for a lifetime. And as a leader, you've got to be looking down. It's like, look, I'm here for a season. So like there was a company that just had a CEO ousted, and then a new one come in. And I was talking with the new CEO, and I was like, look, like I understand like that you're here for a reason, and what got you to this point is not what it's going to take to get to the next point, and that's why you were brought in, right? Um, but instead of getting upset that that old CEO was ousted, like I started talking to people in the company. I was like, well, why were they ousted? Well, they were only here for a reason. They were here to accomplish this goal, and they did that. That's all we needed them for.
Yeah. Well, I just want to circle back. If you really look, or if I look internally, a majority of my style is, I would say probably 60-40 or maybe even 70-30 relational versus transactional, just knowing how it needs to be. But my personality style, I think most can agree if you've met me, I'm definitely more on the relational side. That's where I feel like it's super important to build that, because that's where you bring that authenticity and genuineness. A couple of things I wanted to just kind of point. These are just going to be like quick point and statement points of how to differentiate maybe your own leadership style or what others that are leading you kind of differentiate from confidence to ego. So we're going to go over a couple points that are more confidence style, and then we'll go into the egotistical styles. And doesn't mean this is fully encompasses only what each one will be. These are just a few short points, so don't dig into this like their law. But first with confidence is quiet, steady self-trust. Doesn't need external validation, although it's nice. You don't need that to drive you. You're comfortable with admitting mistakes. I think that's one of the big things. If your leader will not ever admit any mistake, there's a big red flag there. You're focused on outcomes and secure enough to empower others. I think this is the other big one for people that are confident leaders, is ones that are not are terrified to relinquish anything, which really is a trigger for you docs that are listening. If your OM will not give up anything, that should be the first red flag to have a conversation with them and figure out how to manage that mindset and letting them know, hey, you're still secure in this, but this is where I need you and what's most important. Because not everybody can see that, and you can start opening their eyes out of that type of leadership into more of a relational type of leadership. But if they're not secure to empower others, they're only hurting the whole team and your practice. With ego, usually fragile but loud. They need credit. They're defensive under criticism, obsessed with status. We talked about that. And then sees disagreement as disrespect rather than constructive. We're able to disagree. Kirk and I disagree on things all the time, and we'll be like, well, I don't really think that, but that's okay. Like we don't disrespect each other with that. We're just like, I don't think that's how it is, but we also have two different mindsets, and that's why when I say mindsets on certain things, we just say, yeah, I do it this way, but this is how I do it. And we've even talked about in bonus systems. We've said it in the podcast. Like there's certain things that we don't agree on, but doesn't mean that it's disrespectful. And that's one of the biggest things that we have to learn, is it's okay to disagree. Even with the doctor, with certain things, say, hey, doc, I disagree, and this is why. I'm happy to do it how you're asking me to, but these are fundamental reasons why I think it would be better to go this way. A lot of times we say, well, I don't think that's a good idea, and not giving anything constructive on top of that. And that's where we end up with, well, you're just being defiant, and I don't like that. And that's where you find yourself in a poor position. So we have to find that kind of balance. And we also have to be open to criticism. We have to be open to delegation, and not just running everything by ourselves, because that's how you get burnt out. That's how you become a poor leader. And that's how the practice suffers.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. I mean, look at it, right? You went over several traits of ego versus confident. Confidence focuses on results, right? Versus ego focuses on credit. And we've hit that, but But I want to hit it a little bit more because confident leaders care about outcomes more so than credit. So, when we're confident, we want the team to win. It's like, how can I get you to win in your position, right? And I talk about that a lot with the book Extreme Ownership. Of it's about, not about why aren't you doing what I want you to do. It's about how can I get you successful in your position, right? It's more about them versus you. Do you as a leader get upset when somebody else gets the recognition or credit?
That's a hard one for a lot of people.
That is. It's hard for me sometimes, right? It's very difficult.
I want to put a point on that really quick because we had an employee that helped with all of our marketing events, and she still does at the practice today. I'm just not there anymore, and she is absolutely incredible when it comes to doing community events. And the doc would always come in and be like, "Zach, you did a great job with that." I was like, "Nope, you need to go talk to this person because it was all her. It was not me. That was not my thing." Yes, I played a role in, being there as a human and, supporting, but like these were all her ideas. And I made sure like to go back and say, "Hey, Doc's super excited. I told him to come thank you because he was thanking me. I just want to let you know, like, this was all you. You did a great job on it." And validating that, because you will lose a lot of team members when you start taking credit for things that you did not do. And I see it happen all the time. And it's super sad because the people that work on these things worked really hard on it and they deserve the credit. And it's really, you have to remove yourself out of some of these things and be okay.
But you've got to do it in a genuine nature, because there are people that secretly have ego that are pushing the credit to the other person,
Yes. Yep.
right? It's like, oh no, you did all of it,
Yeah.
It's like, don't flatter me with your. It's like, what is that, Madagascar, the
Mhm.
Monkey King? It's
King
like,
Juma.
oh, don't, oh,
It
has
wasn't
so
me.
much ego, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So much ego.
Yeah.
It wasn't me, it
Oh,
was all
you
of.
couldn't have.
Yes. So there's, but to your point, the team can feel it, the team knows. But I'm gonna lob this at you. Do you think ego is always bad in leadership, or is there a level of ego that can actually help a leader push forward and a team
Yeah.
push forward?
No, there is a place for it, and I feel like it's few and far between when you can push this. But I've seen resistance in team members in certain things where they think they have it all and they know it all, and they're not wanting to be trainable or teachable. And that's where you can kind of sit in and match the ego with them to let them understand they're not the only one with experience. They're not the only one that's been through this before. And utilizing that in a leverage tool of not saying, "Look at how great I am," but like, I had to, yeah, to teach a lesson. And I had to do some of my stuff. Like when I did my expanded functions course, like I was training a lot of these assistants because I knew, but they're like, "You don't have any credentialing." So boom, went back to school, got it. And then I went back to him like, "Well, now I do. So now you got to listen." And see that right there, that's why. And it's not, it was good because the newer assistants coming in, I never had that issue. But when you have seasoned people that are like, well, you've never done that before. I'm like, "Well, I have." "Well, where's your certificate or whatever?" And I'm like, "Well, here it is now. So you can suck it." but like, but some of that you have to have it because in an aspect, I've gotten in conversations where I'm like, "Yes, I've done more education than you have in research, and we've done it this way, this way, this way, and this way, and I've proven that this does not work, and this is why we don't do it." And really just to stop that pushback for them to know, okay, I am going to play a little bit of a hard ego role now, like you said, to teach a lesson, but then I back off. After we settle it, we're not going back into it and be like walking around wide shouldered and saying I'm the best. But sometimes you do kind of have to throw that little bit of a hammer, just to, I don't want to say place your dominance, but to shut down resistance or unteachability, if that's even a word, to a team member that is not willing to get on board. And that's the last kind of determining factor where I'm like, okay, is this person worth investing in? But if they're like, okay, now I understand you do know what you're talking about, then they tend to back off. It typically, that happened more when I first came into the practice because we had such a seasoned team and they'd been there for so long. Towards the end, not so much.
Yeah.
The ego does play a role in certain aspects.
This is where, not only in business, but in sometimes with your kids, right? I love, so I grew up with sisters, so I didn't have Nerf guns growing up. So we have Nerf guns, and I have three boys, so naturally I show no mercy. Um, and I got them goggles, okay? So we're not hitting eyes, okay? But everything else is fair game. And now what they'll do is they'll put on like 4 layers of clothing, and I'm like, nope. I'm up there in shorts and a t-shirt, and I was like, nope, you got to take the 3 hoodies off. You got to take the 3 pants off. You can only have 1 layer of clothing. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I shot you in the face. I'm like, boop. you know, it's fun, to sometimes teach a lesson that way to where it allows others to be humbled, not for the sake of humbling people, but to teach a lesson, right? Sometimes you have to do it, and that's part of leadership, right? And sometimes it's not fun to do it that way, but it is effective. So if someone is listening and is trying to become a stronger, more confident leader, what's one way that they can build confidence without letting ego take over, though?
He's put me in the hot seat.
In order to become a stronger, more confident leader, what's one way our listeners can build confidence without ego taking over?
Well, I think first, you always have to know where your confidence is grounded. Is it in just solely self improvement, or is there other factors that are improved? Because it's not a bad thing to want to improve yourself, but what is your goal in that improvement, right? Is it just for you to be, glorified, or is it for all the practice, or whatever it may be? But then at the same time, so with that direction, growing that confidence, you also do need to invest in yourself, in leadership skills, to go back and build up your team. So utilizing those situations where you see it worked, and then bringing it back to your team and say, hey, in taking this course, this is what we utilize, and this is how much better it's been. And getting the constructive feedback from your team. Did you feel the same? And then say, these are the things, and building the confidence of your leader, also investing in your team and say, this is what I'm trying to do as a leader for you guys. If you don't see this happening, can you please give me feedback? And really involving other people to help keep you accountable. I think that's the biggest thing in growing your confidence, is having an accountability factor there of saying, when I start overstepping bounds or something's not working for the team, come to me constructively and I'm going to listen. But then you also have to follow through with what you say you're going to do on that, and actually hear that.
There's a confidence that comes when you've done it, right? Over and over and over again. That's the reason why, like with social media, when people ask me, what should I do to get my social media off the ground? I tell them the same thing that somebody told me. Do 3 stories a day for 30 days. That puts in 100 reps, and you get all your uhs and your ums and your fear of the camera and all that out of the way, right? I will say this. I'll ask this, who are some of the people that you can think of when you were younger that had the biggest egos that would run power trips while you're sitting there trying to learn?
All my friends I played football with in high school.
Okay, that's one, right?
Yeah, that's a huge one. All the people I skateboarded against in every competition, biggest egos ever.
And again, I'm also thinking about, like, because we're in dental, right? I'm thinking about the professors in dental school that studied, but they couldn't do. They failed in business a lot of times, and now they're teaching, right? So I know this is gonna.
Sorry, I had to.
I know this is gonna strike a nerve, or like really hit a pain point for some people that were in dental school and had those professors that were just like, oh, well, yeah, you just wait and see how good you really are when I check this occlusal filling or whatever. Like, come on, like, no, you call me doctor, because I earned that. Like, come on, guys. Like, that's ego, driving you. Versus the ones that are the most humble are the ones that were super successful and figured it out and put the preparation in.
Yep.
Because to me, one thing that really drives confidence in a leader is, again, putting in the reps. And it's about luck, and I say that because luck is what? It's where preparation meets opportunity. Right? Everybody thinks luck is just luck, and it's just like, oh, you won the lottery. Like, no. Luck is where you have prepared intently.
Yes.
And then an opportunity came up and you crushed it because you were ready and you did it.
Yes.
So now you can now mentor others and teach others, which is really what you need to be able to do. You need to study and prepare. You need to do the thing. So you build that confidence, and then you can teach others and lead them to the same conclusion.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
We'll give you an applause. I'm having too much fun with that, Kirk.
You are. So I'm going to close with this. So confidence
I'm going to
says...
tag you after this too, Kirk. Close with that, and then I'm going to do a closing.
Sounds good. So I'm going to close with this on my end, at least. Is confidence says, we'll figure this out together as a leader. Whereas ego says, I already know. Right? It's the difference determines whether people want to follow you or they just tolerate you and just do their job. And you don't want to be falling into that ladder, for sure.
All right. I'm going to challenge the listeners with something on my tag end. So not to one up Kirk. This is not an ego thing. And but these are things that I think are practical for you, things to ask yourself as you finish up listening to this episode. When's the last time you admitted something wrong publicly to your team? Do you secretly compete with your team?
100%.
Do people disagree openly with you?
Yeah, they do.
Do you feel threatened by strong personalities? And this isn't just asking you, Kirk. This is asking everybody.
I know, but I'm answering for the audience. So
yeah. And it's okay. It's okay to say yes to some of these. But it's really important to really get like where am I grounded with my leadership style? If nobody challenges you, it's not because you're perfect. It's probably because you're not approachable. People know that it's going to strike a chord. So just listen to those questions. Really ask yourself, write those answers down, and then find situations where you can be effective in those. And my last closing statement is leadership isn't about being impressive. It's about being effective. Ego chases admiration. Confidence builds your legacy.
Mic drop.
I don't have a thing on my...
Yeah, you got to get a mic drop. Yeah. Well, guys, it's been another great episode of Management Unfiltered. I hope that you have really focused inward on whether or not either your ego is driving you or whether you have confidence as a leader to get in with your team and get in the weeds and get in the trenches with them and be able to effectively lead them without them just tolerating you. But hit the YouTube, subscribe, hit Domlin, and also my Instagram at Kirk Teachout. But real quick, Zach just hit 2 years in his group, 20,000 members. You guys are awesome. We appreciate you. But until next time, it's been a great one.
See you guys.
Come on, give me some.